Good morning, everyone. Everyone that are here, as well as anyone who is out there. Hope I'm not going to be distracted by those out there. Since the subject of this morning's talk is distraction in meditation, we look at the distraction in its nature of the distraction, and when we know the nature of the distraction, what it empowers us to utilize it into. But when we do not know the distraction, how it interferes and impedes whatever we try to do, be that in meditation or life meditation. I'm sure all of you have a lot of life meditation distractions. More than the distraction in meditation. People try to meditate as if to minimize the distraction, but in meditation it has its own distractions. The Tibetan word for distraction is nam ying. Nam ying has a meaning of a dissipation. Your consciousness becomes somewhat dispersed. Your consciousness is very dispersed and it's not collected and not gathered enough to stay focused on the task at hand. And so what it does is it impedes from what you're trying to do. It wastes your time and energy, and often it makes the person feel they have wasted their time, what they're trying to do, and feel very bad and guilty, and sometimes even depressed. So when we talk about distractibility or attention deficit, in what nowadays they call attention deficit, is mainly the attention is being distracted, dissipated to so many unimportant and less important things. It is not gathering the collected attention to the primary focus of the attention. So when psychologists talk about the attention deficit, they're talking about the person's inability to organize their own attention, to pay attention to the very important one as much as they intend to. So the intent is there, but attention is not there. Only belatedly one realizes the lack of the attention or deficit of the attention, and due to this, people identify them with themselves. That's me. And they look down upon themselves, and it can become a cause of great low self-esteem and self-loathing, and very unproductive. And they may reflect that around them, others as well. So distraction is a lack of sufficient attention is a cause of lots of people's disappointment and failure, and therefore becoming very unmotivatable thereafter. Of course, in Buddhism, the meditation that one do is for the sake of enlightenment, not the ordinary worldly life meditation where a businessman or a finance person or an academic or a scientist, they may be so focused in their attention. Nuclear physicists or people who are trying to develop weapons, they also got a lot of attention. But their attention is to produce a good weapon. and they actually produce one. And so we're not talking only the usefulness of attention. If the attention is motivated by greed and hatred and ill will, even the very carefully mobilized attention can be the very cause of the destruction. The world suffer from atomic weapon. Did they not put a lot of discipline and attention, all the resources to put that? So in Buddhism, the mere attention deficit is not a big problem. It's nature of life. But attention in the weakness of authoring a correct intention that is the biggest kind of deficit, is not having the right intention. If you have the right intention to meditate or to whatever you do for the benefit of others, to bring peace. So we will, see the world today has been materially very vastly developed, that never enjoyed by people 50 years ago we are able to enjoy. These are really result of very dedicated, disciplined attention to develop various technology and various things we enjoy today. So there's definitely great mundane benefits that also can derive from attention. But if it's only main purpose itself is only for material success and technological advance, without actually focusing on the well-being of humanity, then it is probably the biggest attention deficit. So this is why Buddhist teachings, idea of developing meditation to develop good heart. That's probably the most important one. So in formal meditation, you could have three stages of the distraction. Say the formal meditation can be one-pointed meditation, focusing on the object, such as the breath, or the Buddha image, or anything, or mantra, whatever you do. You could be spending there half an hour meditation, and if you are able to focus your attention with a good intention carefully, you may even have sessions there where you didn't have any noticeable distraction. We might even say, "Oh, my meditation was so good, I didn't have any distraction." And more beginners would like to assess their meditation as a success if there was a lack of distraction. But as you begin to move more into the meditation, the lack of distraction can be just lack of noticeable distraction can be just a sign of your lack of the awareness to detect the distraction. Distraction has their own cunning approaches to hide from you, hide and seek from you. Distraction by themselves do not put a label on their forehead saying, "We are coming." So distraction do not necessarily inform you that they are coming. Distraction themselves may be harder to detect. So lack of distraction probably is a lack of experience. So lots of people they do the feel good meditation. They try to feel good, relax. They will never understand distraction. They think distraction is they try to avoid distraction so that they can pacify and benumb their gross senses. So they are having a pleasurable meditation. It is a distraction. Just to seek pleasure from meditation is a distraction of distractions. So that's why Buddhist meditation is not feel-good meditation. It's not try to please the skin-deep senses. It is not. It is try to wake up the deep sixth sense consciousness from the sleepiness, from the dullness, from the unawareness of their own greed, their own animosity and ill will and negativities. It is really try to uncover that. So in attempting to meditate for not, if you just do short half an hour, 1 hour meditation, it's probably you just feel I'm meditating daily as a healthy way of life. You did it without any distraction and you feel good day after day. That's probably more like people doing meditation because your doctors told you to help you cope with your pain or life's crisis just temporarily day by day. And that is really not meditation. That's just a relaxation technique. You could do that by various other things as well. Anyway, in the meditation, you will have to deal with distraction, and if you have not yet experienced distraction, you haven't got the discipline to do one very properly yet. So the more the distractions that you experience, probably better it will help to demarcate your progress or lack thereof as meditation. So the distraction in the formal meditation, the intention with intention of meditator is not just to feel good now in this meditation for my body, for myself. As long as a person doesn't put those as a priority, he or she meditates for the benefit of now, future and others, and to peace of my mind. I'm going to do this meditation. So altruistic and futuristic, and more spiritual purposes than physiological purposes. So with that aim in mind, when one meditates, one chooses a quiet place. They usually say you have to go to a quiet, peaceful place, devoid of noise, activities, unnecessary association, and unnecessary cravings and wantings and doings. So firstly, it says you try to minimize all the physical distraction as possible. So they usually say you try to minimize, go somewhere solitude, quiet, and not many people, and so on, as if that's going to be the more ideal place to meditate. So quiet, peaceful time, and a tranquil place is usually regarded to be a basic necessity for doing meditation. Because when your senses that themselves are not stimulated or agitated by any sensory object, then your sixth consciousness have a greater chance to actually focus the meditation on the desired object. So from there, when the meditator now uses his technique to calm his five senses, mainly taming the body and the mind together, so as the intention with his try to do is very, very, very altruistic, and therefore with that as an intention, and also wish to bring peace and benefit to oneself and others from the meditation, develop some skills in the meditation, so that in everyday life meditation we become a lot more sort of stronger, attentive to suffer less attention deficit. With that intention, when a person meditates, of course, one can't learn enough instructions beforehand that tells you, no instructions are given in the meditation how to not have distraction. Just do this, you won't have distraction. Do this, you don't have distraction. Do this. There's no such. They say you should do this, do this, do this. The more you try the proper way of meditation, and as you persevere, that much you're likely to meet the distraction. So, because it is not try to avoid distraction. That when you are attentive, only when you're attentive, you tend to know you're distracted. Anyway, so therefore, only by paying attention, then you will be able to detect the distraction, isn't it? You don't detect distraction when you're profoundly distracted. So anyway, so when the meditator tries to focus his time and energy to develop a calm, peaceful mind, there are three phases in which the relationship with distraction develops. First one is hostile relationship. First experience relationship, or where the meditator relates to the distraction, is he is hostile to the distraction. He doesn't like the distraction. He has aversion to distraction, and therefore he's almost, I can't meditate because I'm distracted. People get agitated. Either they can't sit still, or their mind keep wandering, or they feel dull or sleepy, or they just don't get motivated even to meditate. So there could be all kinds of distraction. Distraction could be caused by none other than the three afflictions. Distraction that is a underlying cause of distraction that is caused by desire is usually excitable in the meditation. When you're thinking of the distract thing, instead of focusing on attention, whatever you're thinking, it excites you. You're thinking of a place or a thing, or things you do or people or whatever. Your mind is very excited with those meetings in the meditation, while the object of meditation is completely ignored. The mind is having a kind of a fantasy tour in these rather pleasantly enticing experiences. So pleasantly enticing experiences are usually not very easy to experience in real life situation. But in meditation, a person, instead of focusing on the breath, they're having these enticingly pleasant experiences with the desirous objects. So these are only obstacles for this form of meditation, and because that is mainly caused by desire. Desire is sort of desire and inspired distraction. Sometimes they call excitement, because meditators are more excited and puffed up by feeling this. And of course, technically, if he has heard enough instruction, he knows that's not the meditation. That's actually the distraction. But little time does a meditator would allow to notice that as a distraction. He would spend a lot of time thinking it's not distraction. But if he or she is well briefed by the instructions and knowledge and reading on the technical meditation, they will know that I'm not focusing on the breath. I'm having this distracted conversation or whatever one has. And so as soon as he discovers that, then he has this hostile. His relationship is with I cannot meditate. Why I have these things? Almost one become cross at the meditation, and one almost thinks that this shouldn't happen. If my meditation is good, this shouldn't happen. So therefore, there's a natural sort of aversion to the distraction. This aversive, reactive, and despiser of the distraction is a beginner meditator's experience. All beginners become shocked, disappointed by how distractible they are. But actually, it is the most valuable experience that the instruction says. It is the most valuable experience is that now you have become a meditator because you actually are having genuine distraction, genuine distraction by paying one-pointed attention on the object of meditation. So the question is whether one thinks that way or one continues to stay hostile towards that distraction. If you recognize that is the genuine distraction, and that is actually recognizing distraction is first experience of meditation. Namdok ngösimbi nyam, we call in Tibetan. Namdok means discursive thought. Ngösimba means recognizing. Nyam means experience. You are experiencing in recognizing your own discursive thoughts. So you're actually recognizing your own thoughts. You are able to see your own thought. Oh, that's me. So when you know that distraction is in your mind rather than the object, that's the experience. But if you think the distraction is not you, but the door, but the neighbors lawn mowing noise, or the street noise, or people chanting, or the rain, sound of the rain, that's the thing, then you haven't got that experience yet. You're still out there. Everything's out there. Your meditation isn't happening because of the noise, because of the heat, because of everything out there. But when you notice that it is my own mind's aversion to these things that is making myself to be distracted, and hence it is actually because of the object of meditation is simply a reference to tell you where you are at, either with the object of meditation or away from it. So when you recognize your mind is recognizing its own discursive thoughts, then the object of meditation has served its purpose. Serve its purpose. Purpose isn't really to constantly hold on the object of meditation as long as you hold it, that much better. But if there's no attention, there's no real increasement of the quality of stability and clarity and intensity of attention, you couldn't say your attention is there. So it's not so much the lack of distraction that is you as a practitioner will prefer, but your attitude when you do recognize the distraction. When you do recognize the distraction, is it still hostile or not? Usually people stay with the hostility for state quite a while. They really feel, I can't meditate, I get distracted, I can't meditate, I can't distracted. Not only, sometimes even may dissuade them from coming to do the meditation, others get sort of demoralized in the meditation. Now, whether the meditator matures from there to move the second level of his relation with distraction is he no longer despises the experience of recognizing discursive thoughts. He capitalizes, he rejoices, he befriends. Second phase is befriends the experience of the distracted mind. Yeah. He knows that now he has to make friends with the object distraction. The ability to make friends with object distraction actually is made the person now less hostile, therefore less reactive. He's actually calmed, developed some degree of humility, because calm abiding really means that you're actually learning to calm more by the presence of distraction than by lack of them. Lack of them is a passivity. It's not actually calm abiding meditation. It's just absence of any conscious distraction. In spite of the distraction, in spite of the multiple distractions, you are still able to recognize them as your thought. As soon as you know they are just experiencing, recognizing your own discursive thoughts, and then instead of despising and rejecting them, but one actually utilize those very distraction to help to oneself remind to come back to the object of meditation. One actually parts the distraction in very good terms, rather than one almost fights with it as if you ever come back again, some type of attitude. Whereas next time you come, I'll really greet you very well. I'm sorry, I was underprepared this time. I didn't quite welcome you with the distraction. Next time, I'm sure I will capitalize on you. So with this in my meditation, doesn't waste time in despising the distraction, because despising the distraction would indicate that one hasn't got the first experience, recognizing the discursive thoughts, recognizing one's own discursive thoughts. Is the discursive thought about the objective distraction is more distracting or more calming? It's not the distraction itself. There's no object that is actually, there's no thing that itself is distracting, But whatever object does instigate the distraction, it enables us to recognize our own discursive thoughts. When one knows it is my discursive thoughts, meaning thought about the distraction, then he knows how to calm his mind and then go back to the object of meditation. And so sometimes he might be interrupted by distraction, and he also interrupts the distraction. So distraction, interruption, 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 distraction. So you counter-interrupt the distraction, almost saying, if you do this, I'm going to do this. Now that I know how to capitalize on you, more times you come, better it trains me. So therefore, meditator is no longer a despiser of the distraction, but rather who will befriend them, capitalize them, and train himself. Yeah? So this is second level of what we call befriending with the distractions. Befriending with the distraction. When the person is able to befriend with his distraction, then it's not so much the duration of his calmness, but rather the clarity of his attitude to deal with the distractions. So lack of, or the interval of lack of distractions long, he does not necessarily get puffed up. Even if the interruption of distraction is still there, but one's quickness to identify them as one's own discursive thoughts, not as the object independently out there. When you're able to do that, then you are now less despiser of thing out there, because you're now actually able to utilize the distractions not as an obstacle, but as a stepping stone to overcome the problem that you have, whatever that it is. And maybe you're a bit too rigid. Maybe you need to soften your approach a little bit. Maybe you're too slack. Maybe you need to exert a little bit more effort. You need to adopt moderate your effort a little bit more skillfully. Now you can juggle a few things. Previously, you can hardly hold one in hand. Now you can juggle a few things. The object of meditation never leaves you, never leaves you, because object is only object when your mind is with it. As is the distraction. Distraction is the distraction only when one you notices it. So when somebody is driving and if he lost his way, but he didn't know he was lost for 2 miles, then he didn't know he was lost for 2 miles. But as soon as he realized he lost, then he found himself. So when he know that he's lost, he's found himself. Like that. In life, there are a lot of times people realize, I have been too angry with this person. I should have been more kinder, more loving. It is so selfish of me. And when he or she come to realize that, then they straight away have the ability to drop that anger, because they didn't realize their own selfishness was distracting them so long, and they thought it was the person that was the cause the problem. One didn't realize my own selfishness, my own ungratefulness is actually been the main cause of the distraction. So like in meditation, in life meditation, those who have experience in dealing with the distraction in meditation informs them and reforms their attitude in life's distraction. And then they learn to drop their own selfishness and talk to the person, sorry, it was really my selfishness. I've been blaming to you all this time. It's actually, I haven't recognized this. And then person is empowered to make peace. Intelligibly, not as a religious duty, but as a humane understanding. So then the meditator, of course, this is talking about the benefit in outside the meditation, when you are able to move through the hostile relation with the distraction in meditation to a befriending relationship with the distraction. The third one is very powerful. Then you are neither have a hostile relation nor befriending. Now you are capitalizing them. Each time you have distraction, you are utilizing them to upgrade your ability to transform them. So, transformative, is it? This transforms you. This truly makes you well. This is where the dharma truly becomes medicine. You can't attach these books on your chest thinking it will get you well, or put the statues on your head, this makes you go well. No, you have to realize. When you realize, then you get well. Then you get well. Then you can really make peace. And then you have really transformative. So meditation is very powerful in terms of overcoming the internal neurosis and anger and selfishness and resentment. One is burying them and denying them far too long. One quickly goes and acknowledges them as just one's own distraction. And then see how much of the selfishness is interfering us, impeding our ability to practice kindness and compassion and forgiveness and generosity and gratitude. These are some of the very kernels of well-being, Yet people aren't able to mentally constitute to think that way until they have their mind in their hand. That's what meditation means. That when you have complete grip of your mind, it's not something you need to change the person or the place or the people, or it's change our attitudes. This attitudinal shift is dharma. Dharma means recovery, recovery. You will recover the basic goodness of love or forgiveness. You have a complete power to do all the above, because now you have complete control over your mind. Previously, we were distracted by our own afflictions and bad habits and wrong opinions, and one didn't know these bad opinions are bad opinions. One thought they were good opinions. When you know the bad is good, good is bad, it's a big problem. You know? When you know that your own distractions are, it's my own, instead of thinking somebody else, it completely empowers us to forgive the other and have the humility to apologize to each other. When you do that, that makes you feel well. You no longer have the same degree of hostility or denial or anger or towards others or towards even oneself. Wow, you will develop self-respect. From the meditation, you actually develop some kind of confidence and assertiveness and humanity that you didn't know how to do that. But in the deep-seated meditation, when your attention is able to empower you to gather clarification in your mind, meditation is like a tablet, put in the water and you purify the water. But this is not a tablet that you swallow, but you've got to develop the tablet while sitting. You've got to mentally constitute a tablet to clarify the mind, and then all of a sudden the mind will become clarified. And so that's why in Buddhism we call realizational dharma is more important than scriptural dharma, conceptual dharma, cultural dharma. Realization has to come from one's own practice, one's own implementation, and to the extent of transforming ourselves. So the distractions in meditation are inevitable and necessary. If you aren't noticing any distraction, your meditation hasn't begun really very well. So the people who spend long time in meditative retreat, they thought it would be simple, just watch the breath. They thought they were, but in the they can just recite so many mantras, or keep silent, or whatever. Yeah, sure, quite a lot of do all the things by the books, But then all of a sudden they're discovering a lot of anger or sadness and so on. They don't realize their past anger and selfishness has been so buried under this. We've been just denying them, and they're sitting there deep in our tissues. And when we meditate, they manifest in form of illnesses or even some actually big sort of crises in the meditation. And it is inside the retreat when you are wrought with distractions and illness and hunger or whatever, maybe you want to go, you just hate being there alone. These things are the very powerful revealer of what are the things we need to learn to overcome. Very few, therefore, people are there willing to do a long retreat. Because as soon as these things manifest, people straight away run in haste. Those who actually run from retreat in haste is more than those who actually sit there and then develop these three-phase relationship with distraction. What they call overcoming one's own demon. There are nobody distracting out there. It's one's own restlessness, childishness, short-sightedness, and leaning more on to try to feel good physically and not look after the well-being of the mind, try to think of what's in it for me now, that kind of these things are more distracting than all the visible or audible objects that are out there. So the meditator in his or her formal meditations practice becomes quite a revealer of what he has to do in life. What are his distractions in life he has failed to recognize as his own attitude, because previously he's always implicated somebody else or things out there. One who has a lot of experience in meditation informs them to tell all the things that you laid blame on too are actually your own thought about them. That the things are not identical to your thoughts. They are just your thought about them. If you change your thought about them, then it will solve the problem. So therefore, a person really get to know his discursive thoughts And once he recognizes discursive thoughts as his own discursive thoughts, he knows his discursive thoughts are not true and real and permanent. They are impermanent, transient, and it doesn't have a nature of that. Because when you see the discursive thoughts, it is already impermanent, because previously you didn't see it. Now you can see it. See, already changing. Oh, thank goodness. Oh, I have to change. You're changing already, so don't belt yourself. So don't be too impatient not having changed too quickly thus far. That's a good start. So a person who meditates, who will have a lot of distraction, they're much kinder towards themselves, softer towards themselves, and as a result, they are softer towards the others. It's amazing. And so you become your own friend. Previously you've been very hostile. You really are belting yourself, or almost like nagging at yourself. If others nag you, you thought that was bad enough. They can only do it occasionally when you are with them. But you're living with someone who nags you all the time. You have to unsit that. That's a hard distraction to recognize. But when you recognize that distraction, the first thing in recognizing your own discursive, that's only comes from deeply contemplated meditations, not just from teaching. You can hear it, you can read it, but when you do it, it confirms the teaching. Not only it confirms experientially in the teaching, but it should also duplicate the confirmation in everyday life. How much peaceful, most gentler are you becoming towards yourself? And you will see others are just reflecting accordingly. Then the others are only a reflection of our own attitude towards ourselves. They're not there independently what they look like. They're just an interpretation. They're just opinion of the observer. Quantum physics says that there is nothing in the thing. The thing is only the opinion of the observer. Well, that means the observer has entitlement to change his mind if he doesn't like the observation. So this is but people who are distracted don't know that. They still think it's somebody else or themselves. They don't realize things are interdependently constituted. When you meditate, there's no distraction unless you meditate. So don't meditate. That would be the best answer, is don't meditate. And don't pay any attention where you have to go, what you have to do. So be a just crazy yogi and then see how much belting you get from anybody. You can't afford to be crazy yogi in this society. You try to cross street, you have to wait until the green line. See? So you might as well adhere to the conventions. And to adhere to the convention, you've got to pay attention. What is the convention? Are you governed by it? If you are in the street, you are. If you're in the bush, not. So therefore we learn to dispose ourselves when you are able to understand the distractions. Distraction is a distract. When you don't recognize distraction, they become habits. When they become habit, they become addicted, and then they become action. The person actually do them, and then he or she suffers the consequences of these, consequences of their unresolved habits. And but one who has done that a few times himself, he will have kindness towards those who are not. So he would not be very punitive and aversive to others who are where we used to be, So there's an amazing power to be kind to those and compassionate and forgiving to those who are lagging where they're not meant to be. And how can we be skillful for them to notice that? And therefore, we are now empowered to practice kindness to others who are suffering and have problems. See, now we'll not be distracted by impatience and saying zero tolerance and all of that when others have problems. We become through our mindfulness, we have power to dispense compassion to those who are not. So they cannot distract us to make us become angry. Because we know it's our mind that we need to contain first. And then when we contain our mind, then we in the face of aggression, you practice tolerance. In the face of suffering, you practice compassion. Then we are not distracted. Otherwise, somebody instigates you with aggression, we also retaliate with aggression. And see, there's no mindfulness. One doesn't know, one is distracted. So you can see the relevance of the learning how to deal with distraction in meditation, not only in the meditation, but also in life situation. You are much more attentive. Not just attentive in the material, physical things, but attentive in detecting your own intention or their weaknesses, their selfishness, how much they need to improve to be selfless before one speaks, or before, where one hears and listens, how one forms one's opinions. One now is very, very aware the distinction between recognizing your own discursive mind from thinking is the other that is cause of problem. When one who recognizes one's own discursive thoughts that I can change, he or she spend more time correcting that than try to sort of allay all the alleged obstacles out there. So there's amazing revelation of the nature of distracted mind is that it is when you recognize distraction as a distraction, then sometimes there is a sort of lull. There's a big, all of a sudden there's amazing sort of pause. No longer any distraction. No longer any of the distraction. Your mind is really just very, very orderly and sane and exactly as you like it to be. So, and then you're surprised. Oh gosh, I'm no distraction all of a sudden. And this is called namtok tangchebi nyam, is an experience of exhausted distraction. Your distraction are somewhat exhausted by your sort of vehement opposition to that. Your ability to remedy them quickly. So now the distraction themselves are somewhat exhausted. So when the distraction are exhausted, means your distraction exhaust means now the mind is getting in its own hand. You are able to have your mind in your hand, and therefore it is mentally disposed in a way that it is constituting calmly and compassionately, and therefore it doesn't have all the wrong thoughts that is taking up your space anymore. So that when the distraction seems to be exhausted, of course you shouldn't be complacent saying, now there's not any distraction. I can now just not worry about it. But still one needs to be still steady and calm and not there is a subtle distraction that time saying, now I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there distraction. I'm nearly there distraction. Thinking that my experience is good. I'm nearly maybe an Arab or somebody nearly or entering the stream or something like that. People think it. So they tend to assess oneself very highly, So the spiritual with excitement, you become very excitable with your spiritual experiences, Of course, those distractions are not everybody's problem, so let's not go into it. So you have to spend a long time in the caves to feel those uplifting, excitable feeling of not having a lot of desire for food, and not missing people, and not craving activities, and have a lot of good quality meditation, don't feel tired or exhausted. There are a lot of signs where you have reason to actually assess your meditation as being some kind of a nearly there. Are we there yet? So, are we there yet? So sometimes, reaching to the place that I've made it is the biggest distraction. so getting attachment to the outcome is a big distraction too. So, but of course, the meditation is very revealing because it opens the whole clear, luminous lightness of our mind, and everything is its reflection. When the mind is light and loving and spacious, then it sees everything as its reflection, and it's indescribable. Basically, the very very heightened level of conscious meditation it's break down all the walls of samsara and misunderstanding. Everything becomes one infinite luminosity and clarity, and therefore enlightenment. Thank you. I wasn't distracted by this. So my talk wasn't good.